Hey guys, Baboon Banisher here, and today we're covering the P-63A-10, which I quite like. Its flight performance on the deck is very solid, especially for a 4.0 vehicle. Great climb, very fast, a decently tight turn, minimal compression at high speeds, and also a pretty good turn rate. It also has decent flaps, which are workable if you make sure not to rip them. Purely from this graph, the only apparent downside is its subpar maneuvering energy retention. It does have a few more somewhat critical downsides though. The higher up you go in altitude, the more power this plane loses. So once you've climbed to altitude, your plane will probably be quite underpowered. So your climb will decrease as you increase in altitude, and your already somewhat poor energy retention will also get worse. The rudder also compresses pretty heavily above 550 kph, so boom and zoom attacks can be pretty difficult to line up shots for. The plane also tends to be rather unstable if you take any damage, making it hard for you to maneuver just using your keyboard. This tends to happen mainly when your damage is pretty asymmetric, like only on one wingtip, but it makes it kind of hard to maneuver with just your keyboard. This probably has something to do with the fact that the center of mass of this plane is farther back, with the engine being behind the pilot. But if you notice that the plane is behaving strangely because of this, try using your mouse aim to make your turn, since the instructor will usually correct for this weirdness. The firepower is a bit of a mixed bag. Your primary guns are your 450 cals, which use early war belts so aren't nearly as good at setting fires. They do still have good ballistics, so they're pretty good at harassing enemies from far away. Unfortunately, they have a rather limited ammo pool of 200 rounds per gun on the nose-mounted guns and 250 per gun on the wing-mounted guns. Something like the P-51D, on the other hand, has around 300 rounds per gun on average, so you will find yourself running out of the 50 cals if you spray too much. And 450 cals are not a very potent set of guns to begin with. You'll likely have to do at least 2 passes on an enemy to really put them into the ground if you're only using these. You do also have the 37mm nose-mounted cannon, which can work, but has a very slow muzzle velocity of 610 meters per second. It also has a very low fire rate, is very inaccurate, sending rounds off center, and there also is no HE belt only option, so there is a 1 in 3 chance that the AP round hits and does relatively minimal damage. Still, I do quite like the gun. It's very fun to see an aircraft completely explode when the gun hits. If you can, I'd recommend you split the guns to use only the 37mm when you think you can hit your shots, usually at very close ranges on a stalled out enemy. So, how do you play this plane? It sort of depends whether you have a team or not. If you do have a team, this plane is actually really fun to fly. You climb, you can dogfight quite a lot of enemies thanks to your reasonably tight turn. You won't be above good climbing props like 109 Spitfires, Yak 3s, pure Mirskis, but you still do want to climb since your poor energy retention means you need to use your altitude to dive and regain speed and maintain your turn. Extended raid fights and energy fights are not as good for this plane since the plane does bleed quite a lot of speed in turns, so if you are in a fight, try to get the kill quickly while you have speed or run for a reset. If you do manage to force a diving fight, ideally a scissors where you can drop throttle and stay behind the enemy is useful. And in this way, you can dogfight a lot of decent airframes, even Yak 3s since your turn circle is similarly tight. These kinds of diving spiral fights do however require you sacrifice a lot of altitude for one target. And if you have to face multiple strong enemies at altitude, you have very few options other than killing a few people on the way down and then just running. The plane does go pretty fast on the deck, but running will only really get you so far. So because this plane doesn't really have a reasonable way to deal with multiple enemies at high altitude on your own, it really isn't a carry potential plane, which is sometimes required of you when you're constantly matched with US teams that don't help you at all. I will say the quality of US teams greatly varies depending on when you play. Sometimes you get actually functioning teams, or you get put into a small match against Germany, which usually tends to be easier since German planes don't turn quite as tightly and only some of them play energy. Other times you get back-to-back-to-back matches of full US teams against Russia, Japan, Sweden, UK, which bring out the demonically strong planes like Yak 3, Ki-44, pure Mirski, Spitfires. You've probably seen it before. So if you're having issues with US teams, try switching the servers up to see if that makes a difference. You could also try and check out the P-63 in the French tree, which has a slightly different flight model and engine performance, but for the most part, it should fly the same. That way you can avoid the US teams while experiencing a fun plane. Overall, I think I really like the plane. Firstly, because it's one of the few US planes that can actually attempt a dogfight against a Yak 3 if they make the mistake of following you into a dive. Secondly, the funny bonk gun that only sometimes works, but when it does, it's really nice. And thirdly, this banana skin is so funny. I just really like it. But it can be frustrating when your team leaves you hanging since you don't really have the ability to deal with these multiple high climbers. You'll see in a bit, but I had a particularly bad streak where I played around 8 matches, and every single one of them I found myself being completely outnumbered, my entire team on the deck doing absolutely nothing, while I have to face off against 5-6 enemies at high altitude that are all coming after me. meaning I can't even attempt to dogfight one of them because if I do, then one of the other ones is just gonna kill me. So after multiple instances of getting run down and dying, or jaying out on the runway and returning to the hangar, I kinda went on a villain arc and resorted to using the airfield AA to get the enemies to at least turn around so I could re-engage them. I'm not proud of it, but I just wanted to get some footage for the video and I couldn't even get a single proper dogfight after getting pushed down to the deck by multiple stronger enemies all diving on me. Here I would try to dissuade you from trying this strategy because airfield camping is one of the worst mechanics in the game. But at the same time, I don't know how you could reasonably expect somebody to actually grind through the American tree at such a severe team disadvantage. All I can say here, I guess, is if you're playing America and this keeps happening to you, then just play a different nation. I don't know if there's any solution to this at all. Maybe teams would be more balanced if they put America on both sides of the matchmaker, sort of like how they do at top tier. I know that kind of screws with the nation versus nation dynamic that we have in some of these matches, but when every nation gets some variant of a P-51 or a P-47, does it really matter? I'm obviously biased because I don't have a particular affinity towards the history behind any of these aircraft. I'm not a proponent for historical matchmaker or historical battles. I'm sure it'll be fine if it's a separate game mode, but for ARB I think they should prioritize balance and fair, fun gameplay, and what they have right now is just sometimes not it. But that's just my opinion. Let's just get into the gameplay. I think one other advantage that I forgot to mention in the intro is that a lot of your enemies sort of underestimate the P-63 because the US pilots who do play the P-63 are usually not using the plane to its advantage. So a lot of enemies will just sort of send a fight with you thinking that they can win easily when you actually outturn them. We're at a decently high altitude at where my engine doesn't perform that well, but this BF-109 is taking a scissors fight with us, which gives us the advantage since all we need to do is just continue turning. If the 109 went for an energy fight, then he would have a much better chance of winning this fight, but we're pretty easily able to get behind him without too much effort. It also helps that the way to counter this plane is to fight energy, and most people don't really know how to do that. Obviously the 109 isn't that great of a turner, but you can actually hold your own against the Yak-3 in this sort of fight as well, just so long as they don't go vertical and try to force an energy fight. I did show a downward spiral dogfight against the Yak-3 in the intro, and it comes down to be very close since both of them have a very similar turn circle. Overall, the Yak-3 is obviously still much better since it has a much better energy, but if they make enough mistakes, then you can capitalize on that. Okay, now on to the full matches. I'm just going to briefly go over this match because this is what a typical match is going to look like for you. First of all, you're going to look behind you and your entire team is going to be diving for a single enemy. Secondly, you're going to look ahead of you and you're going to see either a strike aircraft or like a bomber or somebody that's just climbed higher than you because your climb rate isn't that great compared to some of the good climbers at this battle rating. So you're going to be forced into a bit of a passive position at the start of the match, and the longer you wait, the more it's likely that you're going to get multiple teamed by multiple enemies. There's a P-51 also chasing me, so I'm trying to drag this Beaufighter out as far as I can before I dogfight him. It's not going to be too hard of a dogfight. There's actually a Spitfire over here who's a bigger target, so I go on head-on with him. Because in this scenario, there's really no other way to deal with it. Okay, at least he's down. Beaufighter is pulled off of me, so it means I can turn back in and maybe climb in for an energy advantage. Unfortunately, my team is collapsing, so I can't really hope that I can kill the Beaufighter and then survive. That P-51 is also close around, so if I go for the Beaufighter, he'll probably stick on me. It does look like everybody has dived down, so I'm safe for now, but being at altitude is not an advantage for me because my engine performance is poorer up here. So I'm looking for a good target to maybe go after. This J-26 could potentially be one. Go head on, just a few hits. I'm hoping that I can chase after him, but he does the smart thing and dives down. I'm forced to take this head on with the P-51, and there's multiple enemies close down below me, so I can't continue the dogfight, otherwise I'd lose too much energy and get killed by them, so I'm just gonna keep extending away. And I'm just gonna keep extending away, and I'm just gonna keep extending away, but they're just going to keep chasing after me. My best hope is that a few of them at least try to pull off to go kill ground targets, but currently there's still 3 following me, which is way too much still, especially for that LA-5. The P-51 is spraying at me from a distance. This 2v1 could maybe be manageable, but the LA-5 in particular is going to be really hard to deal with. If it was something like a 109 and a Focke-Wulf, then I would maybe have a chance, but anyways, the P-51 is faster than me, so he's going to catch up, so I'm just going to have to try and force this dogfight here right now. And now you can see the problem with the poor energy retention of this plane. I'm turning once, and I have no speed. This is why diving fights are optimal for this plane, but these guys, I guess, are smart, and they're taking it more upwards, meaning I'm just going to bleed all of my speed and not be able to maneuver. The J-26 is also coming in, so it's going to be a 3v1 very soon. And, I don't know, I don't really have any tips for this kind of situation, because, what do you even do? You just keep maneuvering, and you just keep maneuvering, and you just try and hope that their aim is bad, and their aim is kind of bad, so if I was in a 1v1, maybe I could beat these guys, but my god, it is not looking good. Here comes the J-26, and the P-51D. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised I survived this long. Maybe the LA-5 is out of ammo? He definitely could probably kill me here if he had ammo. And now a BF-109 is joining the fight. Very cool. I'm definitely not gonna survive this. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I get the overshot on the BF-109. Maybe try and go for a rocket kill. No sauce. And I'm not able to lead enough with 37. I do get a few hits, but it's just with the 50 cals, and it's not enough. And that's GG. Imagine doing this 7 times in a row, and that's basically the experience in this plane. Sometimes there's just enough non-American teammates that you can eke out a win, but this is how most matches will go. Our team got a grand total of 5 kills, and obviously I didn't get that many kills that match either, but I think you can sort of see why. Anyways, this is the 8th match that I'm playing. I always cross my fingers that I'll have another good match maybe, but if you look on the screen right now, there are 5 Yak-3s at altitude, plus a bunch more enemies, and if you also look around, there are no friendlies at high altitude. And I think this is the point where I decide, okay, there's gonna be another point in this match where I'm gonna be running from like 3 enemies at the same time, and I'm not gonna be able to do anything, just like I wasn't able to do in the last 7 matches, so if I need to, I'm going to use the airfield AA to make some of these enemies turn around. Okay, here we go. You may see some friendlies at high altitude right now. However, that BF-109 is AFK, that P-51 is about to get shot out by the B-25's rear gunners, and that XP-55 has already been shot out by the B-25 gunners, so yeah, it's basically just me up here. This specific fight isn't that interesting, it's against a Mosquito. You can just take a look at the kill feed though and see that it's all just our team getting massacred. I'm kinda just tunnel visioning on this guy because I've tried playing defensive against the people that are currently above me, but there's not really much defensive flying you can do to counter against 3 people diving on you, so I'm just hoping to try and get this 1 kill and get out. I'm getting a lot of desync as well. You can see the plane just jumping around a lot. Okay, that was a lot of work just to kill a Mosquito. Let's see how many people are on me. That's 3. That's not that many. I've had instances where I've had 5 people diving on me at once. Checking the scoreboard, 2/3 of our team is dead. Their entire team is still alive. Just a typical match playing America, I guess. I-185 might be able to catch me in this dive. He does go pretty fast. It looks like the other 2 pulled off, maybe, but I'm not 100% certain. And if I get stuck in a dogfight against an I-185 and somebody dives on me, that's going to be rather unfortunate. So I'm going to drag him away a little bit before I start fighting him. I thought he was pulling off, so I pull in for him, and turns out he's actually committing to me. I-185s aren't too difficult to fight since they don't turn all that well. They're sort of just like Russian Focke-Wulfs. So I should very comfortably be able to get behind him and put some shots into him. And hopefully I'm able to kill him quicker than I killed that Mosquito. He did end up pushing me very close to my airfield, so hopefully I can kill him before the airfield takes him. Not much to say there. He might have pulled off because of the airfield AA, but I probably would have killed him eventually since it is an I-185 and I was in a pretty advantageous position, but it still doesn't feel great to use the airfield like that. Checking the scoreboard, I have 2 friendlies left. That's more than average. Though I don't know if I can count the 109 since he's still AFK. I climb to get an advantage. The XP-50 unfortunately decides to full send it into a horde of enemies, and so he gets himself killed. It does seem like the 109 has woken up, so he should maybe be able to help here. Gonna go in for the dive to finish the Yak-3 off. He's here, so I might as well hit him. I'm gonna go for the 0 next. I put a few rounds into him. I don't know if it'll be quite enough to put him into the ground. I'm very low on ammo though, so I need to RTB and rearm. Yak-3 probably won't be able to catch up to me, but I don't have to be too worried because the 109 actually deals with him for me. Very cool. Unfortunately, there's still 7 enemies left on their team, so we still have a really long ways to go. 109 ends up being forced into a 3v1 against multiple Yak-3s, and so he goes down. Very unfortunate. But he does take one of the Yak-3s down with him. which means that I can actually try and 1v1 this Yak 3. We both take a few hits in the head-on, and I'm gonna try and turn this into a diving spiral, cause that's where I do best. It looks like he's gonna follow. I'm gonna lower throttle to try and stay behind him. Okay, I might get a shot here. Oh, not quite. We're about to hit the deck, so I'm going to throttle back up to make sure I have enough energy to complete as many turns as I can. Once I do run out of energy, I'm going to lose this rate fight, but while I do have speed, I want to turn in as hard as I can and try and get as many shots in as I can. And he finally goes down. I genuinely despise Yak 3s, but I am glad that this is one of the few planes that can deal with them. Albeit with way too much effort and time and energy, but it's still possible. The French Yak 3 finally dies to engine damage from the BF-109G. The P-39Q crashes while ground pounding, so I just have to deal with this guy and the Ki-49. The Ki-49 can be pretty scary, but I'm hoping that the 37 is able to knock him out, and so he goes down. Not a very deserved 7-kill match, considering I had to use the airfield to climb against that Yak 3, but hopefully you can understand based off the circumstances. On the off chance that you do actually get a team that climbs with you, this plane is actually really fun to play, because it means that you don't have to deal with every single enemy that's at altitude. You know that maybe your friendlies can drag some of the other enemies down, even if they don't just kill them outright. I see an XP-50 at altitude, so I'm pretty comfortable. I'm just going to drop down on this VB-10C and knock him out really quickly, and for the most part, this match, high altitude is pretty clear. Okay, I'm thinking I might go help the LA-7 and the XP-50 with that horde over there, but there's a Spitfire that's directly below me that I just see, and it looks like he might also be an easy target to dive on. Especially if he looks like he's trying to stall up for me. I'm gonna see if I can just get him with the main cannon, because it's gonna be a pretty easy target. I wasn't expecting a pilot snipe there, but I'll take it. My area is pretty clear, so I'm gonna go help this LA-7 with this 109 that's still at altitude. Should be another easy target since he's distracted. Unless, of course, I miss all of my rounds. But I've come in with a lot of speed and energy, so I should be able to get him. Diving back down on into him. SM-92 is going to get to me faster, so I'm going to try and shoot at him. I don't want to take a head-on with it, though, because he has some pretty nasty nose guns. Just more hits again. That's just the 50 cals for you. My friendlies will probably deal with the SM-92, so I'll try and go after this 109. I'm going to pitch my nose down a little bit to gain some speed to catch up to him. He's doing some roly-polies. I'm just going to try and follow him. The rudder was about to compress, so I lowered throttle to stick behind him. And yep, he goes down. 2 Japanese enemies down low that I'm diving towards. I do have some friendlies, so these shouldn't be too difficult targets. It's a little hard to aim right now because the rudder is compressing very hard past 550 kph. Zero's going to try and pitch up for me, but I came on with too much speed, so he's not going to be able to catch me. I'll just be able to very comfortably loop over him. I would have preferred he completely stall himself out, but he dives down. And for this shot, you can observe how much the nose does not go where you want it to go, due to the rudder compression. Oh, looks like we got another P-63 here. He's also got the funny gun. The sound it makes is just so chunky, I can't get enough of it. It looks like that Zero is getting very desperate. He's not going to be able to hit those shots. He might be out of 20mm, so maybe I should just go for a head-on here. Okay, he's pulled off. Looping back down onto him. This obviously isn't the most interesting gameplay, but I mean, that's just sort of how you deal with planes that turn better than you, like Zeros and Ki-43s. P-63 does take out the Ki-43, so it's just the Zero now. I am still very much in compression territory, but I'm hoping that I can aim without the rudder. Okay, he's finally severed, though I'm not sure what is. He might be able to still be flyable, so I'm going to make sure that he goes down. Not great aim there again, but rudder. Okay, he's finally down. I RTB to rearm, get my ammo back. There's a Q-43 that's finally dived down from space to try and engage this LA-7. Coming in for a shot. This hopefully should be easy. Oh, I guess he dodged it. Time to go back up and over. I'm finally going below 550, so this should be pretty easy to aim now. Never mind. Let's just do another pass. Okay, and that's game. So as a conclusion, you can get interesting dogfights in this plane, particularly just because it turns pretty tight. But because it does not have the ability to climb to high altitude and engage multiple people up there, and because in order for you to get kills you need to dive down, cash in your altitude for speed, it is not good at sustaining a long fight. And because 90% of the matches that you play are going to be ones where you're fighting against the entire team by yourself, this plane really does not have the carry potential to survive American teams unless you're willing to sacrifice your soul. And after doing it once for the video just to see how much I could get out of it, I think I'll just enjoy the camo on this plane by looking at it and not actually playing it. If you can find a way to guarantee that you have at least one good teammate, maybe by squatting up with them, then this plane definitely can work quite well, but otherwise you're at the mercy of the matchmaker. Anyways, that's all for now, bye bye!